Oh, were you talking to me, Dominic?
Yes, we're now live. You can proceed with the meeting.
Okay. So on the agenda, I guess we'll go through the agenda. We'll open the Water Allocation Committee for December 13th. We have one item on the agenda as the review of the agenda this evening. We'll conduct roll call. Do you want to go ahead? Do you want me to do that, Dominic, or do you want to?
I can go ahead and do that. Assistant City Manager Trevin Barber.
Present.
Assistant City Manager Ashley Collett.
Here.
And City Engineer Nisha Patel.
Do we want to see if Leslie's available as the alternate, or do we want to proceed with the two members quorum?
I think Nisha's here. She's on mute.
Oh.
This is Leslie.
Okay.
She's here.
Okay.
Let me go find out what's happening.
Let the record show that Nisha Patel is present on the Zoom call. We are waiting for her verbal confirmation.
Sorry, I had to run to the restroom. I'm back.
Thank you. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, City Clerk. Can we open public comment?
Members of the public on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you wish to make public comment for an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Chair, there are no members of the public that have indicated they wish to make public comment.
Okay, moving on to, we'll close staff. We'll close public comment. Any staff communication?
None has
No.
come to the attention of the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Opening business item 5A, water allocation number WA2102. Charles Mondrago, applicant, and Maureen Mitsugu, property owner, are requesting a commercial water allocation for a 586 square foot second story addition at 1177 San Pablo Avenue in the commercial mixed use CMX zoning district. The project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act per section 15302E1. We have a staff report presentation from the Associate Planner, Rick Medina.
Yes. So the project site, again, this is the water allocation is for the Seaside Garden Center, which is located at 1177 San Pablo Avenue. I also noticed today that it's Hana Garden Center as well. So I think we'll use both those interchangeably if there's any questions. The project site is located just off of Fremont Boulevard in back of the dollar store, which is to the west. You have residential properties that are to the east and to the south, and to the north we have the shopping center, which has the two Asian restaurants, as well as the La Morentina market and the Hankook market. And Salvation Army also is to the west as well. Next slide, please. So as background, the applicant is seeking to add 586 square feet. I apologize that's a typo on the background. That there is an existing building which will show that is on the site plan, which I have included, which is 586 square feet, second story to that. It's kind of an open air garden area that they currently use it for now. There are two existing structures on the plant on the site. One is the major showroom for the site, as well as offices. And then we'll kind of identify on the site plan where the plant nursery area is surrounding the area, which is proposed to be added for a first floor enclosure below and a second floor above, which they will need the water for. The applicant, based on the Group 1 water use that would be required for the commercial storage use of the facility, it would be at a rate of 0.0007 times square footage, and so the water use required for the site would be 0.041 acre feet. Next slide, please. So here we have the site plan, the parking lot that is to the right, that is fronting onto San Pablo Avenue. As we look into the building on top, that's the main structure for the site, with the offices that are to the rear, the showroom retail areas to the front, and there is a mezzanine area that has recently been converted to a caretaker space that's on the back half of that building. In the middle area and to the back is primarily where there's storage of plant materials and plant supplies. The green area represents the structure which would be enclosed, which currently is open air currently. It would be enclosed on the first floor, and they would add a second floor to the facility, which would require the water allocation. And you can see the stairway that is to the rear of the site, which is the stairway providing access to the second floor. Next slide. This is the floor plan that is from the project. Currently, the top left is the open air below. There is a covered area that is above that. The applicant would be constructing the stairway that is on the upper right, that would then have access to the new second floor on the bottom left, and then there would be a roof deck area that is on the far right, which would be above the second floor or second story of the project. Next slide, please. So on the water allocation points, per our rules, there's 20 points that are necessary for a project to receive water outright from the committee. I'll go through what the applicant has identified. The applicant has listed the revenue for this project site would be at 7 points, and they are projecting their revenue as taxable sales as 2.1 million. The job creation, they have listed as 6 points. And job creation would be number of part-time jobs created, which they've identified as 1, and the number of full-time jobs created as 2 to qualify for the 6 points. No, if you go back, please. They have projects on major thoroughfares. They've identified the project as being on the Fremont corridor for 5 points. However, the project does sit just back off of Fremont. So there will need to be an evaluation by the committee as to how this project fits into the Fremont corridor, in that it is just one parcel in back of what is the dollar store, the Salvation Army, and the other shopping center that is further to the west. The applicant has also added on blight. They've put down as 5 points as an occupied building, full demo, and redevelopment. In this case, the building would be refurbished, and they would be adding an exterior floor area on the first floor and a floor area on the second. So the applicant is seeking to be clarified as 5 points for that approval. Otherwise, a vacant building remodel could be considered at 3 points if the committee were to evaluate it differently. Business retention, the applicant has identified 7 points, indicating that denial project would result in loss of existing business. So the applicant has identified 30 total points from what they've filled out on the point system criteria. Next slide, please. So projects are evaluated again per the point system as in the ordinance 892, 20 points, project awarded water, typo, apologize. In this case, the committee would have to evaluate on some of these categories as to whether or not they would receive the full amount of points requested. What staff identified that if the business retention is not considered and the applicant is granted water for being on a Fremont corridor, they would have 21 points. If they do not get the Fremont corridor, the project then would have less than 20 points. And then the committee would have to consider whether to forward a recommendation on the project as submitted for council consideration if it's under the required 20 points. Currently, there are 3 categories that water is issued from: commercial, institutional, and residential. From the last project that was issued, there is 4.849 acre feet remaining in the commercial category. With the granting of this project, that would reduce the total commercial availability to 4.808 acre feet. So city staff has included conditions of approval for the committee's consideration. If they were to choose to identify that the project would be able to meet the required points to be granted water under the committee rules. Any questions of staff at this time?
I have a question for staff. What were the conditions that you mentioned?
The conditions would be that they would have to, first of all, they would obtain a water allocation permit from water management. There would be submittal of the construction plans that would be to the building division. So the conditions that were put into the project are the basic standard conditions that would apply for most projects. We didn't have any special conditions specific to this, other than obtaining a review and approval through the water management district.
Would you mind pulling up the scoring sheet again?
Now,
So are
the point system criteria is in the staff report. Do you want to pull up the applicant's point system criteria, what they filled in comparison to this?
Rick, isn't it the same though? They have the same points as what you gave.
We did not give those. I listed what the applicant listed in their application.
Nice
Staff
to
does
see
not
your
change the points that the applicant submits.
So, Rick, are you saying your recommendations are different than, staff recommendations are different than what the applicant placed?
No.
Okay.
We brought to the attention of the committee as to whether there is the Fremont corridor consideration as far as whether they would be able to qualify for the 5 points. And there's also consideration under the removal of blight, how that is to be evaluated, and the business retention, whether the business, if it doesn't receive the points, that the business can no longer exist.
Can Can you put the point sheet back up, the criteria from ordinance 892? Is this straight? No, what you got out of 892. Because this was already attached in, what you just put up was already attached. Yeah, this has a little more detail compared to what they filled in. Trevin, I'll let you ask your questions first since you already raised.
I don't have,
You don't have.
no, I don't have my hand up. I have questions, but I don't have my hand up. You may ask away.
Okay. So they were saying that they should get 5 points for removal of blight because their building is occupied and they're renovating the first and second floor, or they're adding a second floor. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then the first floor, they're adding an addition?
They would be enclosing the first floor area, which on the site photographs that were included, it showed that there is an open area below this covered, almost like a porte cochere. You would almost, it's a covered structure with a high ceiling. And underneath that, currently, they have plant materials and storage of plant supplies. So they would enclose that area, around that area on the first floor below that, and then add the second floor, which has the elevated roof or ceiling above.
Okay, so the first floor does have a part enclosed area. Is that correct?
No, it's open on, it would be open on two sides.
Oh, okay.
It's open on the upper left photo. You can see that it's open
I see.
to the east side, and it's open to the rear on the north side, enclosed on the south and closed on the east.
But it has a roof.
It does have a roof, yes.
So now they're planning to enclose the whole area and then put a second floor as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then can you go back to the point sheet again? Yeah, that right there. The determination part is not current. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I just tried to pull together a PowerPoint quickly, and I used it from a previous, and I didn't realize that they had other text in there. I apologize.
Okay, that's
for
I
that.
was making sure that.
I realized I probably needed to have the point system so that there was a ability for us to review what the criteria specifically is on the left-hand side.
And then the business retention, do you get 7 points if the business could not exist at all? Or if there was just loss of a certain amount of business?
It basically, the way I read this, it says loss of an existing business. So it doesn't talk about business activity or business aspects of the business, but it talks about loss of the business itself.
And what did they say they needed the storage for? Did they?
The applicant is available if you wanted to maybe see if the applicant could address some of these specific questions for you as well.
Okay. If they can answer that, that would be great.
Are they able to raise their hand, Dominique?
Oh, there they are.
Yes, the applicant now has the ability to make his comments.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, yes. The previous proposal for the existing caretaker unit was storage for all the goods for the materials being shown in the showroom. With that converted into a caretaker unit for security reasons, we now need a place for the stored goods to bring into the showroom. Without that place, we have no place to store the stored goods, and that'll take up more than half of the space in the main building. That's it.
Okay, I understand now.
Thank you.
Would you like to open it for public comment?
If the applicant is available for some more questions, I have a few that I just want to understand the project a bit better in the scoring that they provided.
Okay, the applicant, Mr. Mandurgo, you have the ability to mute and unmute as necessary.
Okay.
Thank you, City Clerk. So I want to appreciate you for the business and economic opportunity you provide to the city. I want to understand your business better and the challenges that it's facing. Could you explain a bit more the job creation potential for this activity and the business retention aspect of this request?
Well, the job creation, it'll add one more job and one more full-time job with the caretaker unit going over and looking over the whole business. The part-time job is an additional job to oversee the daily stocking that's going to be going on with the extra space. That's what I've been told.
Oh, okay. Do you happen to know why they marked down that their business would close if they didn't get the water allocation?
Well, like I said in the previous question, not having that storage space will take up almost half of the showroom. It'll take a bunch of business away. I don't know how long it would take to close, but it'll take a lot of the non-plant items that are being sold off of the table. We won't have a place to show them to sell.
Would you be able to speak to the increased security concerns?
Yes, in the past couple of years, the place has been robbed, I believe 3 times, and I believe it got robbed again recently. The owner specifically put up, I think, a razor wire a couple of years ago, and we understand that was against the design guidelines. So we proposed some tall wrought iron railing over the existing boundary wall to help security. But in addition to that, we would like on-site security from the caretakers unit to further accommodate the security. There have been a lot of robberies around that area lately, and with the surrounding area, it is hard to keep security tight around there with the loose businesses abutting my client's business.
Understood. Okay, thank you for explaining that. That's really helpful.
Yeah, they're hopping the fence on the Salvation Army side, and then on the rear side, I believe there's a house there with some parking that they're jumping the fences there too and coming in and stealing the plants. And I believe they broke into the building last time.
Okay. So as I understand it, there's there's an attempt for loss prevention. It didn't go the way that you planned. And so as a measure to try and offset that, you're looking to add an on-site caretaker unit that can hopefully increase the
Security.
the human presence to increase security, which will hopefully create a high-risk environment for criminals. And you're hoping that will help your client. Your client is hoping that is the next best logical step to stay in business. And without that effort, it's questionable as to whether or not the business could continue to exist in this environment.
Correct. The last robbery, I was told they took off with the safe, which was about 200,000 in cash.
Oh,
That'd be enough to put me out.
okay. Okay, well, I understand enough, I think at this point, to keep the business retention points. Let's see. Do we still have the presentation slide up with the point total? Okay, and if the business does not survive, then there would be no revenue generation. So business retention is in this case tied to revenue generation. So I think I understand that point. I understand the jobs creation aspect of adding the caretaker. So that's a job, and then someone to stock the new storage and showroom. For the major thoroughfare, I'm not sure I understand the definition of that. Is there something that staff can provide that's more precise as to what was described in, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the ordinance number 892, as to how staff or the city council envisioned staff deliberating on the thoroughfares as an objective point?
There's nothing really specifically in the ordinance as to whether it needs to be directly abutting Fremont or whether it could be just off of Fremont. And so we've never really have ran it. This is kind of the first instance that I've come across where we've had a project where it is a major revenue type of source, but it is near where it has direct access and reliance upon the Fremont corridor. So that's kind of how I think the committee, so there's really nothing specific to where it has to abut it. So it could be a finding or nexus that we can make in terms of how this project site interrelates and it's connected to the Fremont corridor and its access for its business activity. One thing the project does generate outside of Seaside citizens for this business, this does have a visitor serving attraction of people outside the city of Seaside. So that could become a nexus or evidence that could be evaluated for possibly how it can fit into the Fremont corridor in terms of the revenue it brings in from people outside of the city of Seaside.
Mm-hmm. You know, I want to be cautious on interpreting the will of the council. That, you know, they've set these standards, and it's I think staff's priority to follow their direction. And I think just based on the letter of the law, I don't think it meets the criteria. In this particular instance, it doesn't impact the result. They still have over 20. So I think just in the sense of fairness, I don't think we need to explain or come up with a nexus in terms of if it's on Fremont or not. I don't think that it is on Fremont. And maybe that's a question for council that we can bring up at another time on how liberal that definition is. But for the time being, I'd move pending other committee member comments and public comment. I would move to approve the request with the absence of the -4 points from the point scoring. Do any of the other committee members have comments? Or are we ready to open this up to this item up to public comment before we take a vote?
Just have a quick question, Trevin, if that's okay.
Mhm.
The clerk bring up the map again. I just want to take another look at where the business is. Adjacent to Fremont. Okay, thank you. So it is right off of Fremont on some, but it is on San Pablo and it has a San Pablo address.
Yeah,
It's
this was the
one-
former Operation Shoestring site, if you remember that.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I really just needed that clarification. So that was really all I have. I have no further comments and ready to listen to the public if we have some.
Clerk Davis, would you mind opening this particular item to public comment?
Sure. Members of the public wishing to make public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling in from a phone. Chair, no members of the public have indicated they wish to make public comment on this item.
Thank you. I'll move to approve the water allocation request for commercial allocation at the rate specified in the application, with it on the record that it's probably not in the Fremont category.
I'll second your motion.
All right.
For a roll call vote, City Engineer Nisha Patel,
Yes,
that's a yes on your vote for the motion.
yes,
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Ashley Colick,
Yes.
Assistant City Manager Trevin Barber.
Yes.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Oh, is that the last item? Then we stand adjourned at 6:05 p.m.